2016 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series season was remembered for many things. The last year of Sprint's title sponsorship, the closest Daytona 500 finish in history, the close finish at Phoenix, the bump, dump, and run at Richmond, the most dominant Coke 600 in history, Tony Stewart's retirement tour and his last win, the fog-shortened Pocono race, Kyle Larson's first win, Dale Jr.'s concussion, Carl Edwards' shock retirement, and much more. But one thing to mention is that there was a slight tweak to the point system. With the field size shortening from 43 cars to 40, first place got 43 points, while second got 39, and you would count down by 1 point until you got to 40th, which got one single point, and a bonus point for leading a lap, and one for leading the most laps. With that being said, let's dive in. In the opening 6 races of the season, we saw 5 different winners. Denny Hamlin would win the Daytona 500 by a foot over Martin Truex Jr. Jimmy Johnson would win the race at Atlanta, and then again at Superman Auto Club. Keselowski would win the race at Vegas, and the next week, defending champion Kevin Harvick would win the race at Phoenix. And Kyle Busch would cap off the first 6 races with a win at Martinsville. After the first 6 races, the defending series champion Kevin Harvick would seem to pick up right where he left off by leading the standings by 4 points over Jimmy Johnson, and we would have 8 drivers within 1 race of each other. The next race at Texas, Kyle Busch would take over the point lead with a win. Carl Edwards would win the next 2 races to take over the points lead by 7 points over Kevin Harvick. At Talladega, Harvick would take the lead back while flipping over to a 15th place finish, while Edwards would finish 35th. At Kansas, Harvick would finish second and hold a thin margin over Kyle Busch by 4 points. At Dover, Kyle Busch would get caught up in the monster wreck on lap 355, and this race would give Harvick a bigger advantage. And now he had a lead of 21 points over Kyle Busch. After this race, there would be 4 drivers in contention: Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch, and Carl Edwards. At the Coke 600, Harvick would finish second, while Carl Edwards would have a mediocre night finishing 18th, and Kurt Busch would be the only one with a solid night finishing 6th. And because of this, Harvick would grow his lead to 36 points over second place. Meanwhile, Kyle Busch wouldn't have such a fortunate night.
Up the speed makes the car run a little bit faster.
Oh boy, Kyle Busch in trouble. He's cut down a tire.
He's hanging on to it. He's okay. He's right on pit road entrance. He should be able to get on pit road.
Running 10th.
Did he put any debris from that tire on the back straightaway?
I think we're good. I think we're good.
At Pocono, Kurt Busch would be the one with an answer by winning the race, and Harvick coming home 9th, shrinking the gap to 25 points. At Michigan, Harvick would finish a solid 5th place, while Kurt Busch finished 10th, growing the gap to 30 points. At Sonoma, both drivers would have solid days, with Harvick finishing in 6th and Kurt Busch in 10th, growing the gap to 35 points. At Daytona, both of the contenders would have terrible days, with Kurt Busch finishing in 23rd and Kevin Harvick in 39th. This brought race winner Brad Keselowski into contention and was now just 14 points behind Harvick, while Kurt Busch was now in 3rd, 20 points back. At Kentucky, both drivers would gain ground on Harvick, who finished 9th, while Keselowski would make his 2nd win in a row, while Kurt Busch would have a solid day, coming home 4th. At the halfway point, the battle for the lead could not be any tighter, with 4 drivers in contention for the title. Harvick going for his 3rd championship and his 2nd in a row. Brad Keselowski, the 2012 champion, going for his 2nd. Carl Edwards was also going for his 3rd title, and Kurt Busch still trying for his 1st championship. At Loudon, Kurt Busch and Carl Edwards would both have mediocre days, with Edwards finishing in 20th and Busch finishing 22nd. Kevin Harvick would solidly finish in 4th, while Keselowski would come home 15th. This would drop Edwards and Busch out of contention. This would also grow the gap to 14 points to Keselowski. At Indianapolis, Harvick would once again have a solid run, finishing in 6th, while Keselowski would have another mediocre week, finishing 17th, and was now 24 points behind Harvick. At the fog-shortened Pocono race, Keselowski would finish 2nd, while Harvick wouldn't be far behind in 4th, slightly closing the gap to 22 points. At Watkins Glen, Brad Keselowski would have a very solid day, finishing in 3rd, while Kevin Harvick's fortunes would not be as great.
And around goes the 4th. Kevin Harvick involved in this one, as is the 23 of David Reagan. Once again, chase implications. They stay green, and now caution. Now the caution comes out.
This crash would hand Keselowski the points lead by 9 points. The next week at Bristol, Kevin Harvick would answer by starting 24th and charging to the win, while Keselowski would have a very rough day.
Brad Keselowski was able to get by. Oh, and sideways goes the 41. Contact with the 2 of Brad Keselowski. Caution comes out. The 21 also involved.
Inside. Hold tight here.
This would put Harvick back into the lead by 27 points over Keselowski. At Michigan, Brad Keselowski would finish a solid 3rd place, but Harvick wouldn't be far behind, finishing in 5th, and this would put Keselowski just 25 points behind Harvick. But this would not last long because after the race, Keselowski would fail post-race inspection and be penalized 10 points. This would put Keselowski now 35 points behind Harvick. And with 12 races to go, it would be a game of cat and mouse between the 2 contenders. At the Southern 500 in Darlington, Harvick would dominate the race but would fall just short and finish 2nd, while Keselowski would finish 9th, extending Harvick's gap to 43 points. At Richmond, Keselowski would finish 4th with Harvick not far behind in 5th, slightly closing the gap to 42 points. At Chicagoland, Harvick would have a rough day finishing in 20th, while Keselowski would finish a solid 5th, shrinking the gap to 26 points. At Loudon, Kevin Harvick would get redemption and win the race, while Keselowski would also have a solid day with a 4th place finish and would grow the gap to 32 points. At Dover, Keselowski would have a solid day and finish 4th, but Kevin Harvick's race would fall apart.
What a difference a year makes. A year ago, Kevin Harvick was in a must-win situation, had to win this race, and did. Last week, Kevin Harvick won, doesn't need to have a good finish, and now has a tire blow, and so he is already behind the wall and in the garage.
He would have a terrible day, losing the point lead, and now Keselowski would lead by 2 points. At Charlotte, Kevin Harvick would once again have a rough day with his engine going sour 155 laps into the race. And this was made even worse because Keselowski would have a solid day finishing 7th. With 6 races to go, Kevin Harvick was now behind the 8 ball, 32 points back. Now the question would be, could Kevin Harvick catch Keselowski and be the first person to win 2 consecutive championships since Jeff Gordon in 1997 and 1998? At Kansas, Kevin Harvick would turn his luck around and win, while Keselowski would not be so fortunate.
And 34 points back is the 24 of Chase Elliott. After going from the highs of highs, and the 2 goes around, Brad Keselowski, a lot of damage to the front end of that car.
This would cause Kevin Harvick to retake the points lead by 8 points over Brad Keselowski. At Talladega, Keselowski's luck would get even worse.
It's got to all work out.
And the 2 decides to drop down. He's starting the smoke. This could be it for the 2 and Brad Keselowski.
Saw fire underneath the car. The 2 has definitely expired an engine.
So did it overheat? Did they not get that done soon enough? Was the oil temp too high? We don't know, but that is a consideration.
3rd caution has come out now. Another Chase driver looks to have ended his day with an engine failure.
Good job today. Sorry about that.
He would blow an engine, and Harvick would get a solid 7th place finish and grow his gap to 37 points. The next week at Martinsville, Harvick would have a rough day and finish 20th, while Keselowski would come home with a solid 2nd place finish, closing the gap to 19 points. At Texas, Harvick would finish 6th, while Keselowski would finish 14th, increasing the gap to 27 points. At the penultimate race of the season, Harvick would come home 4th, and Keselowski would finish 14th. But Keselowski after this race was no longer in 2nd. That title would go to his teammate Joey Logano. Due to both Harvick and Keselowski's inconsistencies, Logano would close up that gap and was now 2nd, 25 points back, and Keselowski was now in 3rd, 37 points back. Both drivers were long shots to win the title. If Logano were to win it, Harvick would have to finish 21st. If Keselowski were to win it, Logano would have to finish 9th, and Harvick would have to finish 34th. Harvick and Keselowski would qualify on the front row, while Logano would qualify 13th. The race would go on, and all 3 drivers would run top 10 all day. Both Carl Edwards' bonehead block with 9 laps to go. This would take out Brad Keselowski. Kevin Harvick would finish 3rd, and Logano would come up 4th. And this would hand Kevin Harvick his 3rd championship, and his 2nd in a row. So Kevin Harvick would become only the 9th 3-time champion in Cup Series history. So how would the narrative change? Well, the battle would seem to be between Harvick and Keselowski until Joey Logano would have an impressive stretch of races to put himself in contention. So what about the Final Four in real life? Jimmy Johnson, Carl Edwards, and Kyle Busch wouldn't even be in the conversation for almost the entire year, but Joey Logano would put himself right in the conversation right at the end. Well, that'll do it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week for 2017.